Welcome to Lawn and Garden Month on Echo Means Business. This month on EMB, we're doing a series of free webinars with leading brands and industry experts. For all session info, you guys can visit echomeansbusiness.com. If you don't know me, I'm Craig Williford with Clean Cut Yards. We're based out of Sherman, Texas. I'm a UAG member, as well as Abigail and Jacqueline with Jar Landscaping, who are joining us today. Abigail, Jacqueline, you guys say hi.
Hey everyone, I'm Abigail, and I am Jacqueline with Jar Landscaping LLC here in Central Illinois. In this session, we'll be discussing selecting the right hand tools, care, and maintenance with Chris from Pruning Tools. Hi, Chris.
Hey, good morning.
How are you?
I am glad to be here. I'm doing well and ready to talk tools here today.
We are too. Whenever you're ready, you can start your presentation.
All right, let's see if this works. So we're going to share screen here. And if I've done my job correctly, this will actually work. So let's see. You're probably looking at your presentation. How about now? Can you see the presentation?
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome. Well, I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much to Echo Means Business for putting this all together and for allowing us to jump on and share this topic about proper tool selection, care, and maintenance. One of the things that we did want to just housekeeping notes as we get started here. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask anytime along the way during the presentation. You can wait till the end, but certainly as the question comes up, go ahead and start sharing. The first thing I wanted to do is talk about hand tools of the trade. Now, this is all kind of non-powered stuff that, and some of this sounds, just basic information, but here's the thing that I want to share with you is that a lot of people will use one tool for multiple jobs. So I just wanted to go through, talk about some of the main tools that people use for the specific task in landscape maintenance. Things like tree care. So obviously things like a bypass pruner, a bypass lopper, a handsaw, and a pole pruner are all things that you're going to use to take care of trees. Hedges, you're going to use head shears, bypass pruners, and sometimes even loppers, depending on how large the branches are. Vines, you're going to use bypass pruners and bypass loppers. And lawn and garden, boy, there's just a slew of tools that you need for that. A lot of you are doing lawn care and maintenance, so rakes and edging, root irrigation, aerating, sod plugging, and reseeding. Things like hori knives are great for slicing through sod and getting those installed, as well as just precision cutting tools. And when it comes to weeding, the hand weeders, a hoe, and a cultivator are all important to be using. Digging, you're going to need things like trenching, planting, irrigation, shovels, those kinds of things. And then hauling, you're going to need a nice wheelbarrow to help get that landscape materials right where you need it at the job site. So here's one that I don't think a lot of folks actually think about when they're out selecting their tools and you walk into a landscape supply store, you see a bunch of shovels on the wall, and you know that you need to get one for, that's going to be heavy duty because you're going to be doing some heavy duty digging. This is one thing I want you to take a look at is understanding the metal gauge on a shovel. They will all have it. It's anywhere, it's the metal gauges are generally between 16 to 12. And the thing to keep in mind, the higher the number, the thinner the metal. So something like a 16 gauge shovel is really thin and it's meant for loose soil. And when you come across a rock or a root and you continue to pry, because we all do it, we just we we want to get finished on the job and move along, and we're just going to continue to pry that. Well, with a 16 gauge shovel, you are more likely to bend that metal, and it's going to cause you, you know, grief. You're going to have to run back to the truck, find another shovel. So just make sure that you're using the right one for the job. Now, a 15 gauge shovel will work moderately with moderately compacted soil, and it can withstand some prying. And then a 14 gauge is more your professional grade. So this is what's going to be ideal for digging in hard soils and compact soils. If you come across that rock or the root and you start to pry, it's definitely going to withstand that. Now, if you want no, you know, questions asked, the 12 gauge is the thickest, heaviest duty grade. And boy, I'll tell you what, you come across rocks or roots and you start prying, I assure you that shovel is going to, excuse me, is going to stand up to that and you'll be able to get through that job. So Really understanding the different types of metal that you're working with here is going to save you a lot of time when you're on the job. One of the other things that I wanted to mention when it comes to shovels in particular, there's a closed back and an open back. And what that means, I don't know if you can see this shovel here. This is the second one down in the on the graphic here. So actually no, I'm sorry, the third one down. It is completely filled in with metal on the back side. So where the pole is actually meeting the shovel head, that area is closed over. And when you are working in things like, heavy clays and those types of things, that will tend to get packed into that back of the shovel. So with a closed back shovel, it's got a nice piece of metal that's welded on there and it will prevent that hole from being filled up with dirt and soil, which means it's going to be easier to lift and to move as opposed to getting compacted in there. And another thing, it makes cleaning up so much easier. Another thing that I want to cover is the handle types. Now, when we're looking at shovels here, you go into the store, you see everything from metal to fiberglass to wood handles, and there's different types of handles like the D handle versus the long handle. And I wanted to cover some of the what's important about each one of those. So with a steel handle, we talked about that metal head, that 12 gauge metal head. That's the tool that you're going to be able to use for prying and digging. That's basically like a metal pry bar that is going to just last you forever and be able to, get everything done that you need to get done. Keeping in mind that is a heavier shovel. So a particular shovel that Corona makes is about an 8-pound shovel, which sounds pretty heavy when you're, taking that out to the job site and using it. But something you have to keep in mind is because of the weight of that shovel, because of the thickness of that shovel, it's actually going to do a lot of the digging work for you. So you're not having to push as hard into the soil, and it is more likely to be able to pierce that soil because of the weight of it. So there's different things that you have to consider when you're looking at the shovels. Things like solid core fiberglass. So that is a plastic handle that has the fiberglass that runs all throughout the handle. And that is your next strongest handle type. And that will definitely last you if you're doing things like, the heavy duty digging. And it's going to be a little more flexible than the steel one. And obviously the weight is not there. Not necessarily as durable because I assure you, if you leave that tool out in the sun, UV can definitely damage those tools over time, and that will cause the fiberglass and the plastic handle to get brittle and break. Wood is a viable option that most landscape contractors actually use, and it's a great option. They are solid, they are sturdy. Also depends on the type of wood. If you're using something like ash, look at the handle. Is it an ash type handle? Is it giving you, good solid strength? And I will tell you that it's the most likely to break at the head where the handle joins the shovel head. And that's when you're doing that heavy duty prying and digging. If you're really, continue to pull and push, obviously that's going to snap. Now there are things like hollow core fiberglass. So that's just basically that fiberglass handle. There's nothing inside of it. So that is really more your DIY type shovel. And you want to make sure that you can use that shovel for your day-to-day jobs if you're working with really loose soil and it's not causing a lot of impact on the shovel. Things now, the other thing to think about is the type of handle in terms of, is it a long handle and is it a D handle? You see on this graphic here, these are all D handles, and it's got that, it's a shorter handle and it's got that little D on the backside. What that is ideal for is if you're working in tight spaces, but then also when you're moving materials that you just dug out, being able to grasp that D handle and then flipping the soil over or landscape materials, it makes it so much easier. It gives you a lot of leverage. So it just depends on what your conditions are as to which one you need. I like both, to have both, because if you're out on a job site, you never know which one you're going to need. So I like to have one of each of those. Next, I wanted to talk a little bit about selecting the right pruning tool. This is something that I think a lot of people don't really consider when they're out buying a tool. Oftentimes, especially with like a pruning tool, for example, they will walk into a landscape supply store. They'll say, oh, yeah, I generally am cutting like a 1-inch limb, so I want the larger cutting capacity. But what they're not taking into account is the size of their hand. If you use a tool that is larger than your hand size can take, it's going to take a lot of extra work on your hand. And at the end of the day, your hand is going to be killing you. So you want to make sure that if you see the graphic on the screen, so you see if you've got a small hand, just measure your hand from the bottom of your palm to the tip of your finger and then across your palm to understand the size of your hand. And you can see in the graphic that that's the size pruner that you should actually be selecting. That's going to work best for you. Your hand is not going to be killing you. And if you come across a larger branch, then there's things that you should you should look at things like using either a lopper or a saw, because that's just going to make everything so much easier. Um, I also wanted to cover a bypass versus an anvil, and I think what I'm going to do is stop sharing for a second here, and I've got some show and tell that I'm going to do. See if I can get back over here. All right. So the difference between an anvil and a bypass. A lot of people don't really consider this when they are out pruning, and there's a big difference as to which tool you use at which time. A bypass pruner is ideal for using on green, fresh stems versus a anvil type pruner is best for deadwood. And I'm going to show you what the difference is. So hopefully you can see this. I brought my handy dandy pencil and a bypass pruner. So if you can see this, yeah, if you were to try and make a cut on a piece of hard dead wood, what's going to happen is this blade is going to actually cross over and it's going to just leave that a gap in that tool, and it's not going to make that cut because that wood is so hard. So you want to use something like this anvil pruner, which, if you can see, this actually comes down and it's a solid blade that comes across an anvil. That is what you need for dead wood. If you try to use a bypass pruner on dead wood, you could damage the tool, it could snap, and you certainly don't want that. So using the right tool for the job is always important. And conversely, if you use an anvil pruner on fresh green stems, you have the likelihood this blade is coming down on this top of this anvil and it can crush these green stems, which will leave that plant open to diseases and pests, and you don't want that. So making sure that you use the right tool for, and make sure you close it, tool safety. Making sure that you use the right tool for the job is always very important. So let's go back to sharing this presentation here. All right. So wanted to also cover that, as I had mentioned before, if the tool that you're using is not, if it's too big for your hand and you can't make that cut, here's a general guide to keep in mind. So a hand pruner will cut up to 1-inch limbs. Use a lopper for anything that's 1 to 2 inches in diameter. And then anything that's over 2 inches in diameter, whether that's fresh or deadwood, use a saw. A folding saw is ideal to do all of that, and it will cut through these, the larger limbs with just in seconds. So it's definitely worth figuring out which is the right tool, and that will save both your tool as well as your hand. All right, so let's get into proper tool care. Reasons for proper tool care is that it's going to extend the life of your tool. It's also going to help maintain maximum performance. And by that, I mean, if you're using a tool like your pruning tools and you get sap and debris that build up on your tool, it's eventually going to get sticky and it's going to be hard to make the cuts, and it's just not going to cut as well as, and you also need to make sure that you're keeping it sharp. The sharper the tool, it's going to make cuts easier, and that's something that's going to help you get your job done quicker. Another quick demo that I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. And if this gets annoying, you just tell me and I won't do the show and tell anymore here. But I think this is important because a lot of people, when it comes to sharpening their tools, don't really understand how important that is or just how to do it. So I have this this is a little sharpening tool that Corona has, and it is so easy. It's a little carbide file. You can see this little edge right here. All you do is hold that up to the blade at a 45-degree angle, and you make 5 passes on the cutting side. This is the cutting side of the blade. This is the non-cutting side. So you just hold it securely in your hand, make 5 passes on the cutting side, and then you make one on the back to remove any of the burrs, and that's it. You can do that as often as you need to. So if you're out on the job site, you keep this handy and you feel like the tool is not cutting as well as it should, just go ahead and sharpen that real quick. Now, if you are using an anvil, it's the same principle. However, this blade is sharpened on both sides. So you would just make 5 passes on the anvil side or on the cutting side, and then 5 passes on the other side, and you are good to go. So very important tool to have with you at all times. So whenever, and that will work on loppers as well as any of your digging tools that have a straight edge or a sharpened edge to help pierce the soil. All right, so we're going to go back to this presentation here. And again, if you guys have any questions along the way, please feel free to jump in and ask those now. Okay, and it's very important to clean your tools after every use. I know we're all in a hurry and we don't really take the time to clean tools. I am guilty of that as the next person, but having clean tools is going to help extend the life of that. It's going to help prevent rust. It's going to help the performance, like we said, with cutting tools so that they're not sticky and gummed up. And you definitely want to do that. You want to store them in a dry, protected location. We talked if you leave your tools out in the sun, that sun will cause damage to your tools. It'll, dry out your wood. That will crack fiberglass. I mean, just all of those things. So you want to keep those well protected, and then don't forget to check those annually. So if you're, starting to head out in the early spring or even late in the winter when you're putting your tools up and you're not going to be using them, it's a really good time to check to see what's the handle condition like. Is there anything that's falling off? Are you missing parts on your pruner, like a spring or something like that? It's an ideal time to do that annual check, make sure that you get any replacement parts that you need, and then that way, by the time you're ready to go out in the spring, your tools are ready to go. And wanted to talk about proper tool cleaning method. So one of the things that you should do is, we talked about cleaning your tools after every use, is disinfecting your tools. This is a conversation that I had. I was out at the National Landscape Competitions last week, had a great chat with a gentleman from Husqvarna, and we were talking about their robot-powered mowers. And he was saying that when a landscape contractor who's, working with lawn care maintenance goes from one site to the other and they don't clean the blades of and the underside of the mower, that if you've just cut lawn at a location that has this easy to spread weed, whatever that is, I honestly don't remember what the weed was, but just said that you can transfer that over to another property as you're cutting it. Same principle when you're working with these types of tools, pruning tools. You want to make sure that you are disinfecting them every time. And the easiest way to do that, it's not as difficult as I would imagine that you would take to clean a mower, but it's all you need to do is take an alcohol wipe and just wipe down all the metal parts of the blade. And that you should do every time in between jobs, especially if you're doing a site that has multiple plants. One could have a disease and you could transfer that if you're not cleaning them. So do take the time to clean it. And the thing I like about the alcohol wipes, you've seen those little packets that you get in like a first aid kit. It's, if you wipe it down, it's going to dry completely and it's going to disinfect it. There are other methods. People have used bleach and those types of things before. Those will definitely work. However, they do leave water and they also can leave a residue on the metal. Bleach is a corrosive chemical, and it will actually break down the metal over time. So something like a alcohol wipe will definitely work best for you. Let's see. Also, removing rust. So one of the big, I think, things that a lot of people do, we've seen it both on gardeners, professional landscapers, is when they remove rust, they're using steel wool. The thing I want to caution you on steel wool is that it actually introduces little metal burrs into the metal as you're cleaning your tools, and those are so prone to rust, and that's going to cause more problems for you down the road. It's better to use something like a stiff wire brush that'll help get all of that caked off debris, and then just put a nice coat of like 3-in-1 oil or WD-40 or something like that. And that is not only a great way to store your tools when you put them up, but it's also going to help you keep the tools clean because the debris is going to wipe off the next time you use it. So take the time to definitely do that. proper storing. So you definitely want to leave your tools in hang your tools in a secure and dry location. Don't want to leave tools, we've all seen the comedy sketches where somebody steps on a rake and gets, clubbed in the face. Make sure that you're hanging up your tools properly so that they're not going to cause any injury. Talked a little bit about protecting your tools from the sun and UV light. That's going to shorten the life of your tools. And then dealing with temperature swings. So if you're in an area that tends to get very cold at night and warms up during the day, that can actually cause condensation on your metal tools. So do something like wrapping it in a soft cloth. And this is really in the more the winter days when it's definitely much colder, and that'll help protect that tool from the condensation. That condensation will go onto the cloth as opposed to staying on the metal, which will, when you open that up in the spring to go out and use it, you'll see that it's covered in rust. So definitely don't want to do that. And then also apply varnish or linseed oil on the wood. So if you've got wood handles, just check before you put your tools up, put a nice coat of varnish or linseed oil, and that will help keep those nice and looking good. And next, I wanted to talk a little bit about warranty. When you're going in to purchase a tool, take the time, look for the warranty, and buy the best possible tool that you can afford, because it definitely will be worth it. There's a limited lifetime warranty, and then there's a limited warranty. And I wanted to explain a little bit about the difference. One thing to keep in mind, all tools have an end of life and they will wear out. If you are a professional and you're out making thousands of cuts, it's going to eventually wear out, versus a homeowner who's probably making 1 or 2 cuts per year. That tool is probably going to last them a lot longer for their lifetime. So you have to think about it in terms of how long is that tool actually going to last. Everything will eventually wear out at some point, but yet want to make sure that you're using the tool as it was intended. If you're using it for something else, then there's a good chance that if have an issue, they might not cover the warranty. And think about it in terms of the lifetime warranty is going to cover anything that is with material defects. If you're out using your tool and it happens to break and it's because there's something wrong with the metal, they're going to take care of that. And a limited warranty often means it's got a shorter window. So a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, take a look at that. And when it comes to warranty, if it is a limited warranty, just realize that it's probably not a professional grade tool, that it will wear out and it's going to wear out faster, but it's also got a lower price point. So if you're okay with replacing your tools more often, then a limited warranty could definitely work for you. The other thing is they will void the warranty if you've made any modifications or misuse. So make sure that you're using the tool as suggested and you're not misusing it and doing things like digging with your hand pruners or something like that. Believe me, we've seen them all. So I did want to take a few minutes to talk about one thing when it comes to the green industry resources. As I mentioned, I was at the National Collegiate Landscape Competitions, and we talked about how this industry always wants to engage with landscape contractors, and we are there as a network to help support those who are out there. So do reach out to organizations. I know that National Association of Landscape Professionals had a session on this Echo Means Business webinar series. There's also the Tree Care Industry Association. They are there to help. There's Garden Communicators International, which is gardencom.org. They are a network of trained horticulturists. So if you're doing things like developing content for your website or need pictures taken for your website, they are there to help. They know how that works. I also encourage you to join professional communities, just like Echo Means Business, forums and networking. So you can always connect with those who are in the industry and can help. And then, of course, another great resource is Corona's free Principles of Planting and Pruning guides that are available on our website in the resources section. Lastly, I invite you to engage with us. You can find us on all the social channels. We have a weekly podcast, In Case You Missed It, where we talk about things that are going on in the green industry that might affect you. And you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. And with that, I would like to say thank you so much to Echo Means Business and all the partners who participated in this webinar series. Whew, all right. I got 2 minutes left for questions, or 5 minutes left for questions.
Chris, that was awesome. Thanks so much. I was going to say I'm doing a series for Echo Means Business on pruning, and before I decided to do that, I actually took a college course on the basics of pruning, just to sort of get some ideas of where I wanted to head with this video series. And it cost a bit of money to do the college course, and then once I was done with it, I actually got on y'all's website, cronatools.com, and saw that you guys actually had all that information in there. I wouldn't even needed to take the college course. You guys got some great information there. You can jump on cronatools.com, go to their resource center, and they've got lots of info on pruning. They've got a topic, topping is for ice cream, not trees. And I think that'd be a good one for a lot of landscapers out there, because I've seen a lot of topping.
Well, and that's a great point. I would definitely look at those resources. And TCIA, which is Tree Care Industry Association, is fantastic for that and really explaining why topping is just not great for trees and how it can shorten the life. And it causes the tree to grow in ways that it's just not intended. So definitely look into that. Those are all great resources. All right. Well, again, thank you guys so much. It's been great to be on this webinar series with you all, as well as this whole series through with Echo Means Business. I'm thrilled that we could be part of it, and glad that we get a chance to reach out to some of the UAG members. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the presentation, Chris, and thanks everyone for joining us. Don't forget to follow Echo Means Business on Instagram and Facebook, and then also be sure to check back on echomeansbusiness.com next Thursday for a session about retaining talent with Dynascape and landscape lighting with Hunter Industries.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Good.
I guess we're on, right?
I
think so.
Everyone can see us now.
What's up, everybody? I'm Tito with AJ's Lawn Care, and welcome to Lawn and Garden Month on Echo Means Business. This month on EMB, we're doing a series of free webinars with leading brands and industry experts. For all the session info, you got to visit echomeansbusiness.com, register, and then you'll be in. If you don't know me, my name is Tino Cardoso, and I'm with AJ's Lawn Care. And I'm a UAG member here in 2022, as well as Jenica and Jared with J&J Property Pros, who are joining us today. If y'all want to go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Yes. Hello again. I'm Jenica. This is my brother.
I'm Jared. We're J&J Property Pros from New York.
We are so excited today. We're discussing problem-solving plants with Jane Beggs. Hello. Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. So, we ready to talk about some plants?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's talk plants.
All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen.
We're not going to talk about Jenica's tie. Yeah, but
I think it's pretty awesome, right? I mean, we all need one.
We thought it was proper for this session. We need to be ready.
All right. Can everybody see that?
Not
yet.
But we're excited to see it.
It's supposed to be sharing. No?
Not yet. Maybe the plants just don't like us. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't understand what the problem is. Let's see. How about
There
that?
you go.
All right,
Oh,
There
Jen.
we
it's
go.
custom.
Okay. So yes, problem-solving plants. So hi
Awesome.
everybody. My name is Jane Beggs-Joles, and I'm going to be talking to you today about some plants from Proven Winners Color Choice. So I actually work for a nursery called Spring Meadow Nursery. So I just want to give you a little background. This is a view of our nursery taken last summer. You can tell it's summer because there's no snow on the ground. We are in Western Michigan, so we do get a fair amount of snow. Since this picture was taken, we've completed this construction and actually started more. We've got about 70 acres of propagation space, and this is what we do. We do liners and we ship them out to growers in 49 to 50 states, most provinces of Canada. And that's important because if you're a landscaper, I really don't want you buying a plant directly from me. I want you to buy a finished plant from one of my growers. These little plants, no one is going to be happy putting them in the ground for a commercial job or even a residential job. Please talk to my customers, get a full-size plant. Everyone's going to be a lot happier. But I wanted to also show this video because I think it's kind of fun. In addition to propagating plants, we also select them. And this is kind of a cool video because it shows our trial gardens for Hydrangea Paniculata breeding. So I like this because it gives you an idea of the range of bloom time that you can have in just one species. Because of the angle, you can't see the different sizes, and it's too early in the season for you to see the different flower colors because Hydrangea Paniculata typically changes flower color through the season. But it's still pretty cool. It shows you how much variability we can have in a species. And that's important because when we're talking about problem-solving plants, it's nice to know that you've got a few species that you know what they're going to do. You're confident in them. And once you have those, then your job gets a little bit easier because it's a matter of finding the one that's the best fit for that application. And sometimes that's literal, which plant is going to fit what's going to be the right size and shape. Other times it's finding fit in terms of what is the right color to meet your client's requests or their overall look of the property. So there's a lot that we can do with some species that we know are tough, rugged plants. So what kind of challenges are we facing? These are things that I hear about wherever I go. Deer are a thing everywhere. Everyone swears they have the worst deer problem ever. It's terrible. And we're trying to solve all these problems. And then, oh, by the way, people would like to support wildlife, whether it's bees and butterflies or songbirds. But they don't want to support deer. So what do? Well, we're going to do our best to give you some plants that will meet at least some of these challenges, and you can hopefully get some good ideas for what to do. Now, the low maintenance mass planting, this is what everyone wants. They want something that's low maintenance. Now, first off, there's no such thing as no maintenance in a plant. I don't care what anyone tells you. At some point, something's going to happen. It might mean that you have to mow it all the time like a lawn. It might mean that you just have to whack it back once a year, which is true of a lot of flowering shrubs and perennials. Some things it might be that you just have to go in every few years and kind of selectively thin out some branches. At some point, you're going to have to go in there and you're going to have to touch the plant. And that's where Chris's talk that he gave about Corona tools and the right tools for the job, that's so important. Please use the right tools for the job so that your plants stay healthy. Anyway, we're looking for plants that are going to do this and have minimal maintenance and look good. So one of my go-tos for that is Aronia melanocarpa. This is a species that's native to North America. And until recently, Aronia melanocarpa was really geared towards orchard production. Most of the breeding had focused on it as an orchard plant. People who wanted the fruit for jams, jellies, even making wine out of them. However, it's a species that had a lot to offer, and we are just beginning to scratch the surface of what it can be as an ornamental plant. And with that, we've got some really awesome new sizes and shapes of this super durable plant, because Aronia melanocarpa will take cold. It will take some harsh conditions. I've seen the plant be underwater for a week and come right out through it and go on with the rest of the season and do just fine. It will go into zone 9. I will caution you, though, as we get into the deep south, they survive. They don't look that great. But other than that, it's a tough plant. You might have to watch it a bit with very alkaline soil, but this is a tough customer. So this is a ground cover form of it, and you get the spring flowers that pollinators love, and then you get this wonderful fall foliage that is just delightful. So there already you've got 2 seasons of interest going for you, and then it does produce fruit. Now, these ornamental selections that you'll see on the market, they will produce enough fruit to keep our songbird friends happy. Game birds like them as well. And if you have a customer who wants, they'll probably get enough fruit they can put it in their oatmeal or something, and it'll be fine. But if you have a customer who wants something for grow your own, they want to make jam, I'd really rather they go with one of the more the orchard selections that have a much heavier fruit set. But that said, you do have the fruit that is quite appealing, all in all. And there are lots of different sizes and shapes coming on the market. I expect we're going to see more. If you are not familiar with Aronia melanocarpa, check it out, because this could be a real workhorse in any landscape. Another workhorse, and this is one that I'm sure everyone's familiar with, is Spirea, because Spirea was used a lot, and it was used a lot because it's tough. It is a rugged plant that will take a fair amount of abuse. Deer don't care for it. The only problem with Spirea, other than the fact that it was used a lot and plant snobs don't want to admit to using it, in some areas, Spirea japonica has proven to be invasive. And this is important for everyone to pay attention to these discussions that are going on, not just with Spirea, but with some other species as well. If you're in the profession, we have genera, we have species that are really valuable to us. We need them. But we don't want to create a problem. We are the original green industry. We don't want to be planting something that's going to be a problem. So we want to be responsible. We want to choose some sterile selections. And those are coming on the market for Spirea and for some other plants that I'll touch on that people are looking at banning. Now, I'm going to tell you to get engaged as a professional, because if you're engaged and you're part of the discussion as restrictions are being contemplated, and these may be at the state level, they may be at a more local jurisdiction. If you are at the table and you're part of that discussion, you can try and steer it towards giving us the option of having some sterile plants, as opposed to entire species, and in some cases, entire genera being banned. It's a lot easier to affect the discussion before the law is written than after. Okay, so now that I've got everyone worried about, the Spireas being banned, here's one. It is sterile. Now, the benefit of that sterility is the plant is going to rebloom. The plant flowers, no seed is set. It says, oh, I better try that again, and it flowers again. So, Spirea, what a tough plant. You're going to have them leaf out in the spring. These don't need a lot of work. You maybe go in there and you shape them a little bit, and then they're off. They're rocking and rolling, flowering throughout the season. And you don't have to do much to these. You don't really have to do anything. So Spirea is definitely one of my go-to plants for a low maintenance mass planting. And whatever your client wants, just find out what colors they want. There's probably a Spirea that will work for them. I put this in because it happens to be one of my personal favorites, just because I like the kind of cooler tones. And the foliage has some interesting coloration in it. This is a Spirea media, not a Spirea japonica. But you can find a Spirea that is going to be the right color and the right size for your job. Okay, shade. Shade is a challenge. We all like trees. If you don't like trees, you're in the wrong business, right? Trees do so much for us, but trying to landscape under them can be a bit of a challenge. So there are plants that will thrive in shade, but you just need to be aware that even the plants that do well in shade, you're not going to have as many flowers, and you're probably not going to get the foliage color that you may see in pictures. You'll see pictures of plants and they have very vibrant foliage, whether it's in season or fall color, and it says the plant will grow in shade. And that's true, it will grow in shade, but you won't get that vibrant foliage color. That's just how it is. Same with the flowering, it's just not going to flower as much. That's how it is. There's nothing wrong with the plant. The plant is happy and healthy, but just so you are aware of that. One of my go-tos for shade, for sun, really for pretty much anywhere in zone would be Devilla, because it's tough. Devilla is one of the few plants that will tolerate dry shade. This is an outstanding plant for filling in spaces. It does have a little bit of a suckering habit, not in an obnoxious way, but it's kind of casual, right? It's going to fill in. You don't have to do much of anything to this thing. You might go in there and tidy it up just a little bit, but for the most part, you plant it, it gets established, and off it goes. You have the yellow flowers in the summer that pollinators love, and then some of the selections will now have the vibrant fall color. Here's another shot of that fall color. Remember, you're not going to get that fall color when it's in deep shade. The only thing I would say about Devilla is if you have a client who wants a very formal manicured landscape, they want everything pruned to within an inch of its life, this is not the plant for them, okay? This is a plant for somebody who's a little bit more relaxed. That said, what a workhorse. If you have an awkward space somewhere, you don't know what to do, you can't get stuff to grow, check out a Devilla. They are really workhorses. Another workhorse, Itea Virginica. It will take wetter conditions. In fact, it kind of likes wetter conditions. But other than that, very similar story. It's going to sucker a little bit, not in an obnoxious way, but not a plant for somebody who wants everything pruned into a little meatball type shape. You're going to get some lovely flowers in the summer that are fragrant, the pollinators love. You get that nice fall color. But remember, that fall color, that happens the more sun you get. So Itea Virginica is just such a workhorse of a plant, and I'm a big fan. Clethra, one you're probably familiar with, but I'm going to mention it again just because it's a really good plant for shade. And kind of like the Itea, these are all native species. I know we have people asking for native plants. Here we have some selections of our native species, and they have fragrant flowers, and pollinators love them. Clethra is a great choice for a woodland garden. It will take on some yellow color in the fall. Personally, I don't think of it as being that spectacular, but it does color up a bit. So Clethra is a good go-to. It does like wet soil. So just a nice choice for filling in a woodland garden. Okay, then we get to really horrible places where people do stupid things. I'm not going to make any promises about what a plant will do if it's run over by a truck, but we can try and have some plants that will tolerate the general abuse that people put out, right? Air pollution is something that we don't always think about, but there are plants that don't really like that. So we want to choose plants that will tolerate these tough conditions and, shall we say, thoughtless behavior on the part of human beings. One of my go-tos, potentilla. I know there's probably people like rolling their eyes on this, like potentilla, that's like old school. If you were doing this back in the 80s and 90s, like it seemed like there was a law that every gas station north of the Mason-Dixon line had to have a potentilla in it. The new varieties are much nicer. They have nice full habits. They're going to flower all season. Really, potentilla does everything we could want a plant to do. It is going to flower all summer. Deer don't like it. Pollinators do. It's a native plant, and it needs like hardly anything. You just maybe shape it a little bit in the spring. It does its thing all summer long and trouble-free. Once they're established, these plants will take some very stressful conditions. They have good drought tolerance once they're established. Just Potentilla is just a really, really useful plant for adding easy color to a landscape. Now, there are different colors of Potentilla out there, unless you are in a very cold zone. If you're tuning in from zone 2, zone 3, something like that, maybe zone 4, the pinks will do great for you. When we get into the southern part of Potentilla's range, the pinks, they'll do okay, but you're often going to see them fade. Where I am in Western Michigan, the pinks hold on fairly well, even though we are technically a zone 6. Because we have a fair amount of cloud cover, we don't have the intense sunshine that you will have in some other areas. But if you are in the southern part of its range, or you do have very intense sunlight, like if you're at altitude, the yellows and the whites are probably going to be better choices for you. Personally, I really like the yellow, and I'm not crazy about yellow for the most part, but I think yellow Potentilla is just outstanding. Okay, another one of my go-tos for dry conditions, this is Hypericum. And like the Potentilla, you can put this in, get it established, and it will rock and roll through the summer, putting out lots and lots of yellow flowers. Bees love it. Just an outstanding plant. Now, this variety was one that won a Blue Ribbon Award from the University of California with their irrigation trials. And I want to bring this to everybody's attention. If you're not familiar with this irrigation trial, please go check it out. It's a really, really good study of plants that survive under extremely low irrigation. And if you are anywhere where there's water stress, where there's the potential for drought, go check this website out. Basically, if you are west of the Mississippi, you ought to look at this and see what they are recommending. They have flowering shrubs. I believe they have perennials, and they put these plants through a very, very rigorous test. It was only at the University of California, I think in Davis, and then they had another location in Southern California where they did these evaluations. For 2022, they've expanded their sites. They will be trialing plants up in Idaho and in Salt Lake City, I believe in Arizona. So the plants that are going to be featured on this website are ones that I think are going to be really good for low water use areas. And talk about problem solving plants. If that's on this website, I think you want to check it out. Okay, another durable old standby, Thuja occidentalis. I know deer like it. I'm sorry, they do. That said, it's tough, it's super hardy, and it's a plant that whatever size, whatever shape, and a lot of different colors, you can find something that's going to work for that job, right? And you know what these guys do. Very hardy. They'll take some wet conditions. And this is one of my favorites. If you look for the dwarf varieties, they do great in a container. If you have a very dwarf arborvitae, you can overwinter it above ground in most of North America, and it'll be fine. Dwarf arborvitae is a really, really good choice for someone who has a patio garden or a rooftop garden, and they want some year-round color. Check out Thuja occidentalis. Plus, if it's up on a roof, you don't really have to worry about the deer browsing it, I hope. Hibiscus Ceracus, another one of my tough customers that I know, this is like, you're like, my grandma had one. Hibiscus Ceracus, Rosa Sharon, Althea, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to tell you to look at it again because Hibiscus Ceracus is tough. It'll take sun, it'll take heat. It'll take crummy soil. It likes crummy soil. It'll grow in clay. It will take a lot of abuse. If there was ever a parking lot plant, it's Hibiscus Ceracus, right? Butterflies, hummingbirds love Hibiscus Ceracus. Here at our nursery, we've actually seen the hummingbirds fighting over the flowers. And, you have these beautiful little birds. They look like little jewels. And they are very aggressive when it comes to these flowers. It's kind of surreal to see, but there you are. Anyway, Hibiscus Ceracus, there's been a lot of breeding to give us different shapes and sizes. So we have a columnar form here. You can imagine how useful that would be for parking lots, you know, all these different sizes and shapes. The color of Hibiscus Ceracus, by and large, it's just going to be green foliage. There's some variegated ones, but most of them are green. I am not aware of like any purple foliage or anything like that, but you do have a lot of different flower colors. So you can find a color that works for your customer, you know, whatever color it was that they were looking at. These are a little bit smaller, you know, upright, but not quite that total column. And then there's some that are little balls. Like, I mean, how awesome would that be for a parking lot? So these are just great plants. Please take another look at Hibiscus Ceracus, you know, kind of don't be a snob. Okay. Even the plant snobs here at Plant Snob headquarters, we like Hibiscus Ceracus. Another one of my tough guys is Barberry, right? Personally, I don't like Barberry because they're prickly, but they are tough and they are useful. And talk about a plant that comes in any size, any shape, any color. You can find a Barberry that is right for your job. That said, here's another look at, you know, various different sizes and shapes of Barberry. And you know the abuse of Barberry will take, right? And this is one, if you have someone who really wants to prune Barberry, tell them to go for it. I personally wouldn't, and most of the newer varieties have a nice shape so you don't have to prune them. But if you have someone who really likes to prune stuff, it's not going to hurt this plant. What you do need to be aware of is this is another plant that is actually, it's been banned in some places and it's going to be banned in others. And that's because older varieties could be very weedy and seedy, and they could be a problem. I'm an avid hiker. I don't like it when I go for a hike, I'm in the woods, and I see a barberry seedling growing where barberry should not be growing. Newer varieties are not as seedy as those old ones. They're not problematic. And there are also cultivars that are sterile. This is one, get in on that conversation. If there are people in your municipality that are trying to ban it, and there's a good chance there are, please be part of that conversation so you can steer them towards allowing sterile varieties in. It's a lot easier to affect that conversation before they ban it than to go in after the ban has already been put in place and make your case that this is a really valuable plant for you and for the landscape industry. And then finally, I'm going to end with hydrangea. Not because I think hydrangeas are really a problem-solving plant for these tough, challenging areas that I've been talking about. It's because your customers probably ask for them. And I say that because that's the number one plant we have questions about from consumers. All the people who live in Nebraska and want to know why they can't have hydrangeas like Martha Stewart does on Nantucket. So you're going to have customers who ask you for hydrangeas. So quick and easy, if you are not on Nantucket, if you're in a place that Hydrangea macrophylla or big leaf hydrangeas struggle, I'm going to give you two options. One is Hydrangea Arborescens. This is a native species, Hydrangea Arborescens. It is very cold hardy. It flowers on new wood. So if they're cut to the ground, if they're killed to the ground, if that Nissan truck rolls over them and, you know, flattens them over winter, you just have to cut these guys back right around this time of the year, and they will come back and they will flower that year. So Hydrangea Arborescens is my first go-to for tough, challenging sites where people want hydrangeas. Hydrangea Arborescens you can get in lots of different sizes, lots of different colors. You will not get blue. Blue is not happening. That customer who lives in a zone 3 and they want a blue hydrangea, for them it's going to have to be either an annual Hydrangea macrophylla or spray paint, because blue hydrangeas are not happening in zone 3. My other hydrangea solution for people in either zones or you're looking at a site that hydrangeas are not happy at is going to be Hydrangea Paniculata. Similar story. very cold hardy, flowers on new wood. Both of these, the soil is not going to affect the flower color. These are the toughest 2 species of hydrangeas out there. And as with the Hydrangea Arborescens, you're going to have lots of different sizes and shapes, more or less, and different colors. You're not going to have blue. Hydrangea Paniculata, it's not happening in blue, and I'm sorry, but that's how it is. But these are rugged plants that will take abuse if you have a customer who wants hydrangeas and you know that Nico blue is not going to make it. So thank you very much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and this is such a great thing. And thank you for everybody who is learning, because that's what is driving us forward as an industry. I think it's great. Thank you for including me in this.
Jane, honestly, we thank you so much. This was so informative and
Truly.
so timely, because we actually have had a lot of clients that they want the native, they want the pollinators, they want to encourage that kind of habitat. So a lot of the plants you were mentioning, I was definitely taking notes over here because are just in time for what we need. So
awesome. That's great. I'm glad.
Thank you
so
for
glad.
sharing all of that. We can't wait to go back and take more notes.
Yeah, we kept talking while it was going. We're like, that's a great one. That's another one. That's we will admit.
Welcome to my world where I walk around the nursery and say, I want that. I want that.
There is a shared hatred, though, for Barberry. Because do they make a variety without the pricklies?
Actually, I think there was one.
Really?
But it was not a very good one.
Got it.
But the story I always tell, because Barberry, I don't like it, but I've talked with landscapers who were in really tough situations. I think of a lady I spoke with out in western Nebraska, and we're going through a list of plants. What could she get to live at a gas station in western Nebraska?
Right.
And finally, I was like, you're going to have to use the Barberry.
Barberry, you can't even kill him, even if you want to.
You can't. You can't. So there's a place for everything.
Tino, right?
Tino, what do you think?
They're horrible. We rip them out, and they just come right back. It's it's horrible.
See, you don't actually have to worry about a client. If they feel, aggressive and they want to take it out on something, take it out on the Barberry, because it'll come back.
Exactly.
Well, also, I loved how you talked about the hydrangeas as well, because we had a few clients that there was the endless summer variety. And for a while they were having difficulties where they said it bloomed beautifully. And then we cut it, and then the blooms never came back. It leafed out beautifully, but we never got flowers. And I know there was another variety of endless summer.
Genetic.
There's a number of them. I guess first off, hydrangeas alone is an hour long.
Exactly.
In all seriousness, I have done talks that are nothing but hydrangeas for a solid hour.
Right.
It's that complicated. But
yes.
I would say that with the Hydrangea macrophylla, like the endless summers, the reblooming hydrangeas, we're like at reblooming hydrangea. It's like the iPhone 6. We're at the 3rd or 4th generation of reblooming hydrangeas. So the newer generation is way better than the older ones. But they're still going to be Hydrangea macrophylla. And deer like all hydrangeas. I'm sorry. That's just
yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they
do.
It
is.
Unfortunately. I mean, I know, Tina, we're in all different zones. I know the deer are crazy up here. How are they down by you?
Oh, yeah. They're just horrible. When we get deer, then we have armadillos, and we have hogs, and we have everything just wants to eat everything. So we do a lot of Mexican heather, a lot of lantana, esperanza, and they eat the cactus around here. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you got to cage pretty much everything.
That's what they say. We either cage or yes.
It's amazing. No matter what zone you're in, there's something that's going to try to eat something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I definitely am team Spirea.
Oh yeah.
Definitely look into that, and hopefully we can get some.
Spirea is fantastic.
Here.
It's fantastic.
Spirea is good. It's old school, but there's a reason why people planted it.
Correct. Yeah. And again, Jane, thank you, because you you brought up some wonderful points, and we're so excited again to do our homework again and really
Awesome.
look back into some of these plants.
Awesome.
But yes,
Well, thank you so much. This has been good.
Jane,
And, spring's here.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Well, we're excited.
Tino's like, yeah, I'm already into summer. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Central Texas. It's always spring over here. So.
Tino's way ahead.
Seriously, this weekend they're threatening us with snow. So I'm like,
yes.
Wow.
Yep. We're not out till almost May well. It's
Yep.
like you're just holding on for dear life.
Well, again, Jane, everybody, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
And,
Thank you.
we look forward to putting some of these plants into practice and looking into
Super
it.
cool.
Let
Let me know how they do.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
Bye, everybody.
See y'all later.
Thank you, everybody. We hope you join us also next week for Thursday session. It's going to be retaining talent with Dynascapes and landscape lighting with Hunter Industries. Please give Echo Means Business a follow on Instagram and Facebook. And again, you can sign up for those sessions at echomeansbusiness.com. Thanks again for joining us, and hope to see everybody here next week. All right.
See y'all later.
Everybody.